career purposes or for going into varsity or being able to understand who you are as a person. We work in the fields of art, entrepreneurship, leadership, and also literacy. One of the projects that brings us to this, the Nelson Mandela Youth Summit program, is that we have a photography program that we've started last year, and it has grown. This year we've attracted more than 75 young people in Soweto only, where they are interested in photography, but they didn't know what photography is. So many of us think photography is taking selfies for Instagram, but no, there's more to it, and this is where I came in to bridge the gap between the institutions and the youth that do not understand the whole concept of photography. We are very honored that the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund took us on and allowed us to be the official photographers for the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund Youth Summit. And these are not photographs taken by older people, but they're taken by young people between the ages of 12 and 19. Can we give that a round of applause, guys? The presentation that you're gonna see is in partnership with the Market Photo Workshop. We would like Mr. Lekgetho James to stand up for us, and we gradually thank you for the equipment you've been giving us for this project. I'm gonna give it to Loyiso to show you just throughout the 9 provinces what the kids or the children and youth that were photographers for the summit captured, and we've put it together in a form of a presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, South Africa, and the honorable members that are in here. I would like to introduce myself as Loyiso Oljon, the visual delegate from the Market for Workshop. I'm busy working as a curriculum manager and on the side as a visual practitioner. Part of this program, as Ntabi was mentioning.
Points of order, honorable member, please stand closer to your mic.
All right, sorry about that, Chair. So part of the project.
The reason we say you must speak sitting is so that you are close to your mic. The acoustics are better. We won't think you are disrespectful if you speak sitting. We understand it's because of the microphones. They must be closest to your mouth. Okay.
All right, thank you for sitting down. A bit nervous. All right, the presentation that we are about to present, it's a collective practice. Something that between the Market for a Workshop and Skillful Spaces, we had engaged in developing some kind of a program, as Ntabi has mentioned, where we bring practitioners to influence the skills that we wish to unpack to young people. So this project, as Ntabi has mentioned, it's we were involved with the Nelson Mandela through photography, whereas I was a facilitator of that, where we recruited students from the Market for a Workshop and students from Soweto who are part of the Skillful Spaces. So what I'm just going to take you through is slides that gives basically the collective practice. And by collective practice, I mean, for those that do not understand, it's a new term that I would like and propose across the world that we need to consider as a legacy that we share amongst young people in terms of skills transfer. And some of the experiences that we've gone through, and you'll see from the presentation, there were certain things that were said by one of the delegates that are in this building, where they shared their grievances, their issues as the youth, in terms of skills, in terms of knowledge, in terms of training. But the biggest thing is the practice that comes from homes, sorry for screaming, from homes, which is something that I think Ntabi, through her program, she kind of like put everything and made sure that this becomes a homely space where kids are comfortable, you can scream as you want, like you are doing now in the parliament, and you are so comfortable, but you learn in the process of growth, the process of being a practitioner, the process of being a citizen of the country. So I'm just gonna start, and then I will explain everything as we go. So as mentioned, we had four actually, organizations that we partnered with. It was Skillful Spaces, Agito Grouping, which is an entertainment group, and Posi Creatives. This was part of a Right to Write History, which is a project and a concept that we wishing to engage with the Nelson Mandela and the youth in a format of photography to write history. Our history is written in words. And what we had thought as Skillful Spaces and the Market for a Workshop is to engage in a visual history where everyone will be accessible and give access to everyone in terms of information and how they would like to tell their stories, their history. I think we're a generation where some of us identity has become an issue in terms of who we are as Africans and who we are as South Africans. And I think through visuals and spaces that we've engaged these students, we're hoping to grow and engage a greater number of students. So this was part of a program that we started, as mentioned by Ntabi earlier in the year, where we trained the youth in terms of creating narratives using their family albums. It is quite important that every image that you have at home, you store it, you safeguard it, you archive it. And archiving means history. An archive is the information that our generation will have access to and read and understand what happened and what is happening. So through this, the students were taken through training where they were shown how to operate a camera and engage in various platforms where they're engaging in terms of the album and how the album relates into history. And basically they were sent back and forth to home to ask about the images that they have at home and what do they mean in their history. So part of this other slide, this was part of the consultation produced by Agito Grouping as part of a photo booth that saw us to actually engage with but participants in the program to talk about their issues that I'm suspecting that today they'll be bringing them up and engaging with members of parliament to understand those issues that are coming forth. Yeah. All right. So this is part of the work that has been edited, that was photographed by the 4 participants that we are having, that are currently photographing. So if you see any youngster that's around that's holding the camera, they are part of the Skillful Spaces that have been commissioned to come and photograph. And I encourage everyone that is here to even use their cell phones to be part of this photography experience. Cell phones are still a tool for photography, and it is actually the most accessible instrument that I think we can use to tell our stories. Yeah. So just to speak about the engagements in terms of the platforms that we've been across the country. So we were involved in consultation processes where, as mentioned, there were discussions and debates in terms of issues and what is about to be presented today. And through the collaboration with the NDT, we went through various sites where we were shown various sides of history, where Nelson Mandela in particular and the Greater South Africa experienced the process of apartheid. So you will see as you go through the slides, the various places that we've engaged and the various delegates that we're debating and so forth. So as mentioned by Ntabi, this is work produced by the youth. And just looking at the work, I think personally for me, the youth, the young people that had almost like a 3-week course did extraordinarily well in terms of capturing moments and making sure that we have a documentation for the Youth Summit of 2018. So just to even add, as you are all watching, so some of the works that were photographed here was used again in social media to promote, and using social media, specifically Facebook and Instagram, as a digital archive that writes history for every young person. So I would like to encourage, even within that practice, that every moment that we spend here or engage within the program, to please engage with the National Mandela Children's Fund Instagram account, where I think you can tag and share images that are part of this event that is currently happening today. Yeah. So these are part of the photographers that were part of the photography of this event. Yeah. All right. So our next slide, it's just to speak about the market for a workshop. As mentioned by Tabi, that the market for a workshop, and I apologize for this, apparently we can't have sound and this at the same time. But to give an introductory, that the market for a workshop, it's a photography school based in Johannesburg, Gauteng. It trains photography from an introductory level to an advanced program level. And it gives away bursaries to any student that would like to study photography. And it basically teaches you the visual culture that we need to understand, as I mentioned, as a visual delegate, that I think is another instrument that we could all pack and be involved in. Yeah. All right. I would like to thank everyone for this. I think we're running out of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable members, parts of the things that were stated by the Honorable CEO of NMCF as she was addressing us was that it is significant that we all play a role in advocating the change that we want to see in our societies. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that poses a big implication on us as youth, that we all have a role to play in advocating the change that we have to see, and we also must all make a difference, because in that manner, if we are all advocates of the change that we want to see in this free world, in our schools and in our communities, we shall surely establish ourselves as a generation that is a specimen of revolutionary souls. Moving on with our program, honorable members, I shall now be handing over to Honorable Katlego, who will be facilitating the political debates. Let us please give her a round of applause as she proceeds forward.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start with our informal caucus. We have Honorable Nkwankwa from UDM. Please note that we had invited all political parties to be present, and unfortunately most did not respond, but Honorable Nkwankwa was kind enough to respond and come and be part of this. So for that, can we give him a round of applause in show of appreciation? Thank you. Honorable Nkwankwa, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Program Director. Ladies and gentlemen, molweni bethu nani. Niyaphila. Siyaphila. Thank you very much. You see, Deputy Speaker, the problem here is first you are asked by your leader to represent him, and then while you're sitting here trying to gather your thoughts, because I can't speak to this gathering as he would have spoken, for instance, because he's a senior citizen. So he decided to take a different approach. Then it's whispered in your ear that, no, we must change and now talk about the role of young people in politics. So you don't know where to start, but I'm kidding. I think I want to start by saying, there's a quote I like, something that was said by former President Kgalema Motlanthe. And he said this thing, he made this statement he was paying tribute to Madiba during the passing of Madiba in 2013. It's become one of my favorite quotes. I even quoted it in Malawi recently. And I happened to quote it to a gathering of people who actually saw me quoting it in Parliament in South Africa. And they said, we'll give you more quotes that you can use in future. He said, for instance, as the one chapter is closing on the life of this lovable revolutionary, another one is opening, prefaced by the question whether Mandela's remarkable contribution to human progress will simply pass into historical memory like that of great men and women before him, or whether it will occasion a leap of faith in those with the power to make a difference to the abject social experience of the overwhelming number of the world's people in whom Mandela's life was bedded. I think as we celebrate the centenary of Madiba, this, in my view, comes to us as a challenge as young people, to say we too need to do our part to make South Africa a better place for all of us to live in. Learning, obviously, from the example of former President Nelson Mandela. This is an important question because whether you are talking about issues that have to do with social justice, whether you are talking about issues that have to do with social entrepreneurship, whether you are talking about issues that face young people in general, I think the challenge for any generation is to determine what its own struggles are and then try to do something about them. Look, I always say as a young person that the generation of the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Minister Anegom here, is the generation that was responsible for providing political freedom. We now have to take the country to the next level to say, how do we address some of the socio-economic challenges that face us? You see, when I realized that on the program director, that I'm the only political party here, I said I'm going to deliver a State of the Nation address and maybe also call it a new dawn, the real new dawn. But I think, Deputy Speaker, since you are here, it means that the fact that the UDM is the only party that's here, it means it's the only party that takes young people seriously, doesn't it? But ladies and gentlemen, I think the question is very important to say. Dealing with these issues, South Africa that faces a number of socio-economic challenges, whether it's issues of poverty, whether it's issues of inequality, whether it's issues that have to do with whether we, for example, we have our political freedom to some extent, but people would ask a question, where we are in terms of economic freedom. I use this term economic freedom advisably because I have an economic background, and usually in economics it means something completely different. But I mean it in political terms, right, to say whether we've done enough to do that. But I think the question when we talk about social justice, in South Africa, for instance, we usually talk about issues of inequality and think that they are someone else's problem, and think that they are a challenge that is for government alone. When we talk about issues of youth unemployment, where we know that young people and vulnerable groups in society, which is women in particular, continue to bear the brunt of poverty and unemployment. We must, as this gathering, ask a very important question to say, what policies, what proposals, concrete proposals, can we put on the table for parliamentarians who are deployed in this House by yourselves, and whom some of you will be voting for the first time, I'm sure, next year, to say, what are some of the concrete proposals that you're going to give to us political parties, to us public representatives, as we begin the electioneering period going to 2019 elections? To say some of the proposals around resolving issues of inequality, resolving the issues of youth unemployment, whether the programs we have respond to some of these challenges, and say, we demand that you put some of these issues, for instance, in your manifestos. We demand that you put some of these issues for discussion, forward them for discussion, as some of the parties will be reviewing their policies going to the 2019 elections, right? I think it's an important opportunity for young people to try and influence that process. But the voice of young people in particular in society don't just depend on the youth leagues of political parties. Don't depend on the youth of political parties to advocate for your issues. Today I'm not speaking as the UDM. I'm a South African first and foremost. I'm not speaking as a member of an opposition party. I'm speaking to you as a fellow citizen. I don't even think it's a youth parliament. I'd be out of order if I were to say that I'm not speaking to you as an honorable member of parliament. I have to say that, otherwise Deputy Speaker would rise on the point of order and say it's a parliament. So all of these issues that have to do with the struggle for fairness, struggles that Nelson Mandela and his generation fought for. They said, we can only take you to a particular point, but beyond that point, you have to play your own part to determine your own strategy. You see, the difficulty about the kind of South Africa we're building now is one where we think that everything should be about, is less about substance and more about form. It's more about theatrics, right? It's less about effectiveness. It's about people who want to be seen, to be doing things, or to be making a lot of noise. That's the kind of, you see, the problem here in South Africa currently is that we think everyone who can stand behind the mic and talk is a leader. And leadership is about providing solutions to problems. You see, we took a decision a long time ago in the UDM to say we're going to stop lamenting about some of the problems that face South Africa. Yes, there's a time when we do that, when we politic, when we say other things because we're politicking, we're politicians. But we also have a responsibility to roll up our sleeves and make a difference. Leadership is not about you sitting down and criticizing other people. That's why then we took a decision to say, I'm passionate about continental issues, and the party created a platform and said, let's allow you to make that difference in the continent, provide those solutions, while we also continue to work together in South Africa to try and make a difference in some of the problems facing our country at the present moment. So the issue is for us, the younger generation, is to identify a few struggles. Even when it comes to issues of social entrepreneurship, I was involved in a business, I think you know, Sisulu Uluto Technologies from Khayelitsha. It was started by a few young men from Khayelitsha, right? Now it's got branches all over the country. But when they establish the business, they're not driven by the profit motive. They didn't just want to make money at all costs. It is about the contribution that that business should make to society. And one of them, when we were sitting around the table talking to government at the time, I was not in the UDM, even though I was active politically, was to say that we want to contribute to your job creation strategy. As a result, for a number of years, when we're talking about trying to break even, we didn't even break even for a while. They didn't, it's not my business, but I was part of it. But the focus was to say that how do we upskill young people, make sure that they have the necessary skills and expertise to be able to start their own businesses in future, but to also learn in that process so that they can be able to add value to processes that build communities. And you see, when you talk about these small businesses in particular, except for the corporate sector, you see, I usually say, maybe I should make this point this way, I usually say there's a difference between Ubuntu and charity. Usually, Ubuntu, when I do something for you, I don't need to tell the next person that I helped you. And charity, often what happens is that we must stand in front of cameras and everyone must see that I helped you. Right? Small businesses, when they show that they are responsible citizens, they don't go around telling people. Because they usually come out of those communities and they understand the context in which they operate, right? And the problem is that in South Africa today is that when I help you, then I want the whole community to know that I've helped you. You don't make a difference because you're passionate about what you do and because you are committed to that cause. It's because you want to be complimented by the next person. It's the reason why you think on Instagram, we always talk about a culture of conspicuous consumption. But I'm sure anyone who has an Instagram account is put under pressure to fill. Like they need to show the world that they are successful. Right? You must flaunt the little bit you have. Show it to the rest of the world. Right? If you fly economy, then you hide the part that says economy class because you want to show people you're flying and all of that. Then we build a society that really doesn't focus on substance over form. It's a problem. I was saying, for instance, when I saw Iskatamia recently, I was excited and I was happy. I said, Deputy Minister Anegom, one of the issues we must do as South Africans is to I beg your pardon, Minister Anegom, is to love ourselves, appreciate what we have. Umama Mahlatini and the Mandela Queen started dancing. Africans always dance with their bums, don't they? They dance with their bums all the time. But the minute then some people from overseas start twerking, then it's headline news. Everyone in Africa wants to twerk. But when the Mahotela Queens were doing it, no one wanted to do it. Because we don't love ourselves enough. That's the problem. Because we don't want to embrace our culture. We don't want to embrace what makes us unique and what makes us different as a country. As a result, when people come to us with very little to offer. Because what we want to do, we want to sound like Beyonce. We'll never be Beyonce, even if we tried. We want to be copycats. We don't want to build an Africa that can be attractive to the rest of the world. But what we want to do is to copy what other people do, and then we have a problem when they don't come to Africa. It's because we want to be versions, African versions of other people's creations, because we want to conform. That's the difference between Africa and China to some extent, right? Without going into a technical political discussion. But China says, this is the path that we want to go. These are the issues that we think are the major tenets of the nation we're trying to build, and they go for it. Whether you like it or not, they don't care. It's what works for them. And when you look at them, yes, it would have its own pros and cons, the system that they follow, but it works for China. Without promoting China, Africa is that problem. So I think the role that you should be playing, in particular as young people, is to say, you need to hold us politicians accountable. You need to stop trying to allow all the time political parties to be your voices, especially the voices of young people. You need to find a way to make sure that your views can find expression in the different political parties. Young people in gatherings such as these ones must be able to say here in Parliament, when there are important bills, when important issues which are going to affect young people in particular, it is young people like yourselves who are future leaders of this country who must apply their minds and say, how about you do this thing? How about you consider some of these issues? Guided, obviously, by people who have the necessary skills and expertise to be able to understand some of the complex issues. But when I sit in the midst of honorable members like yourselves who are future leaders of this country, I'm very excited. I can see in your faces that South Africa is indeed a very bright future. But I think one of the things we must do is to say, as we deliberate today, ask an important question and try to answer the question by saying, we know who we are. I'd like to believe that we do. But now we need to talk about who we could be as a nation. What are some of the steps that we need to take in order to take ourselves as a country to the next level? Look, one of the issues that we may not necessarily be able to discuss today is that in South Africa today, we have, I think, politicians, we have lost our way, Deputy Speaker. The manner in which we engage in public discourse has a tendency to polarize our nation. when we should be providing direction and providing leadership and be sober on issues, on what would work, even on this land question. I'll give you an example. On this land expropriation without compensation, I may not agree with some of the things that Delegota is saying, but he has every right to say them in all the platforms in this country. And no one should intimidate him or make him feel that he doesn't have that right to say the things he's saying, because then we protect his hard-won liberties. We protect his right to freedom of expression. We protect all the rights that he has, which are enshrined in this particular constitution. So, as I'm preparing to shut up, you see, Deputy Speaker, is that you normally give me 3 minutes to speak in the House. So now that I'm given more than 3 minutes, I'm taking advantage of the platform.
You don't know what to do with it.
No, I do. You see, I want to say, as I prepare to sit down to shut up, ladies and gentlemen, is to say, thank you for this opportunity. Mine is to encourage you to not only to be active citizens in your political lives, but to also be active in the communities from which you come, but to also seek to influence the direction of the country. I want to quote, as I prepare to shut up, Program Director, exactly what, in that very same speech, former President Kgalema Motlanthe said. The litmus test, however, is whether the inheritors of Nelson Mandela's dream, heirs to his vision, and adherents to his philosophy, will be able to make the dream for which he lived come to pass in the fullness of time. And that's our responsibility. It's a question we must ask. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Honorable Nkwankwa. Please pardon me, my voice is playing tricks on me today, but I will try to do my best. I hope you can hear me. Yes. As we're going to engage and ask important questions as young people, because this platform was created so that we can be given an opportunity to have a voice. During consultations, Honorable, young people had questions that they wanted to ask or pose. And they compiled a lot of questions that came out throughout the regional consultations. And yesterday, a young man by the name of Umangaliso, he's 12 years of age, 10, oh, askis. You see, leadership starts at an early age. He was able to rectify. I want to give our honorable member, Mangaliso, the question you asked about voting, the one you spoke about yesterday. Can you pose that question to Honorable Nkwankwa? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. So my question was not really much of a question. Well, it's kind of like a statement. So let's say we're in 2019 and it's the elections, and a child wants to vote, but they don't have that opportunity to vote because they are underage. What if we make this change? What if the child studies all the things that different political parties want to change in the country, and they understand the depth of what they're doing, and they go through 1 or 2 assessments, and they have like the voting intelligence of an adult? Because just because somebody has a different age than another person does not necessarily mean that they should have less access to things because of their age or anything like that. But like many adults expect children to be to not have as much intelligence as adults, but if the child has surprisingly high intelligence, but they are still not allowed that just because of their age. It's not because of what's on the outside. It's because of what's on the inside.
Honorable, I hope you heard. Yeah.
Oh, are you going to take a few?
We're going to take a few more questions. Or maybe would you like to respond immediately?
No, I'll respond to that one. You say, I think you're ready to vote for the UDM next year. We'll give you an idea. On a serious note, I think you see it's a very pertinent, it's a very important question. But I think there would only be a few exceptional cases where young people would be ready to vote at a very young age. I think that is also intended to protect young people until they arrive at the right age to be able to make those decisions. You see, in your case, I think you must work closely with me so that I can continue to give you further preparations for the future. But it's a very, very, very good question. I think you're saying we should not tie everyone with the same brush. Young levels of development would actually be different from different people, and they differ from person to the next person. I think you're quite correct, but I think you must come and work with the UDM closely so that we can work with you going to 2025 and 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Nkwankwa. So one of the most important conversations we had during the consultations, because the consultations ran for about 4 weeks in different regions, one of the most alarming questions that came from the Western Cape was the issue of gangsterism amongst young people. And one of the most burning questions was that, why is it that political parties do not seem to be involved in communities when it comes to solving issues of gangsterism? So maybe the question would be, as a member of UDM, what is UDM doing to eliminate such issues in our communities?
You see, I'm not the kind of person who lies in order to score points. I think firstly the question, I try to avoid the issue about voting, because naturally as a politician, when you start talking about voting, then you tend to engage in vote maximization behavior. So I didn't want to use this platform to campaign. But if you want us to talk about voting, colleagues, anytime, then I can show you what my manifesto says, draft manifesto for 2019. The question has to do with us political parties nitpicking some of the issues that we want to be seen to be doing something about in society. And unfortunately, the question is indeed true. The statement is true that us as individual political parties aren't doing enough, especially insofar as gangsterism is concerned in the Western Cape. We think that it's a government problem. We have a tendency of saying it's a government issue, but we don't play a role in terms of trying to get involved at community level, right? To play a supportive role to try and find solutions to those problems. I've seen a few political parties, not mine, in some of the communities, but they only tend to get involved around elections. So what we don't do is whatever we do before elections in order to gain votes, we don't sustain it after elections. It has to do with this vote maximization behavior I keep talking about, right? It's about getting into office rather than ensuring that you provide lasting solutions to problems. I'm saying, as the UDM, it's one of the issues that we have not paid a lot of attention to. I mean, in terms of the consistency that I'm talking about, that around the 2014 elections, we're involved in a number of issues, a number of programs around the Manenberg area, but we didn't sustain them beyond elections. And I think that's a problem that faces a lot of political parties. The issue is that going to the 2019 elections, what will happen is that then as we begin the process and finalize the process of drafting our manifesto, the province here would naturally, as it has always happened in the past, Province here would highlight these issues, one of the issues that the party needs to focus on as it puts together its campaign strategy, and probably also come up with a program of to how we are going to respond as a party to this challenge. But we have dropped the ball as the UDM insofar as that is concerned, I must admit. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the ANC or other parties.
Thank you, Honorable Nkwankwa. We're now opening an opportunity for our young delegates in the House to ask questions. We have a question coming from this side. Honorable Member.
Thank you so much. Through you, Chair. My name is Ntebang Sukhono. I'm the former ambassador of the Northern Cape. I think as an individual who will be voting for the first time next year, I'm particularly interested in your manifesto. I'm just trying to understand what is UDM's position, or what are policies that UDM has that deal with children's rights, and also what policies do you guys have in place that also deal with issues that children are facing in this country?
Okay, thank you, Honorable Member. We also had a hand this side. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question is based on the education system, because when I look at every party's manifesto, it talks about how it's going to change the education system. Then when you look at the Chapter 2 Bill of Rights, it says everyone has a right to be educated. I visited this school of mine. It's a private school. When I went there and I look at the situation, then I asked them, have you ever talked to the Department of Education people? They say, yes, you have talked to them. Then I said to them, have they ever responded to your request? They say, no, they haven't replied. Because like they say inequalities in the urban and the rural school areas. Let me focus on the rural school areas. Like how destitute the village is and how it tussles when it comes to the issue of education. There's a lot of lack of things at the village school. Like, for example, they need internet. And this is the question. Do we, the people at the public school, demand more from the government, or the government is the one that provides less for us? That is the question I'm asking. Then, if you are like 19 years old, can you run for the counseling or take part to be the counselor? Like when you look at the village, there are things that needed to be done, but the counselor are not doing it. And you have a mind say, I want to do this to the villages, and I want to do certain things to change the villages. So I'm asking, can young people run for the counselor, for the counseling? Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. Okay, we'll take one more question, and then we'll give Honorable Nkwankwa to respond, and then we'll have another round of questions. So, relax, delegates. We are still here. We'll take one more question coming from this side, and then Honorable Nkwankwa responds, and then we'll take another round of questions. Honorable Abongile.
Thank you, Honorable. Is it morning or is it afternoon? Good morning, Honorable Nkwankwa. Thank you for allowing me to pose a question. I think this question goes to every leader in the House, every member of Parliament in the House, but particularly since we are posing the questions to you. I just want to ask if you have any awareness of albinism issues and any awareness of disability issues. I don't like to use the word, so I use inability, because I don't think inabilities is an infinite thing. It's changeable, right? So disability is very finite. But I just wanted to know, what are your specific levels of awareness before you even maybe mention what your solutions are to that? Thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. The speaker has called me to order. When you ask a question, you are given 30 seconds to ask your question. And Honorable Nkwankwa, you're given 1 minute to respond. Thank you. Yes.
Oh, to all these questions. Then I'll do a summary. Firstly, let's talk about education. Look, it's a challenge that we're grappling with. Firstly, it's a resource constraint challenge, and there's also a leadership question to some extent. In some of the provinces where there are, for example, a lot of kids who are still standing under, attending schools under trees, and in provinces like the Eastern Cape, Limpopo, and others, the so-called rural provinces, you find that there are still a lot of mud schools as well. There are programs in government underway which are seeking to address that, but it's going to take a long time if we're only going to depend on the fiscus to address some of these problems. It means that other stakeholders in society, including the private sector, has a critical role to play in trying to address some of these challenges. But I think from a policy perspective, what the question you should be asking is whether our education system is preparing yourselves, you young people, for the fourth phase of industrial revolution, right? To say, are we giving you the kind of education that is going to help you in future, that will continue to make you employable and marketable? I am not too sure when you look at some of the initiatives that have been undertaken by some of the countries, some going as far back as 2016, trying to prepare for that phase in terms of its programs and education system. It's a question, obviously, that we need to grapple with on a daily basis and try to find solutions to them. The question that has to do, I want to answer firstly you in very broad terms to say, we've established as young parliamentarians a network of young parliamentarians for human rights that does a lot of work on the continent. In Malawi recently, where we had a regional symposium, one of the moderators and the speakers there was a person who represents minorities, people with disabilities in Kenya, and he happens to be an albino. And it's precisely because we were aware of some of the challenges that our colleagues and citizens, in fact, human beings, were facing. In Tanzania in particular, where at some point people were being killed, their parts being auctioned off because people believed that, for example, if they killed someone who was an albino and used their parts, they would get more luck and all of that nonsense and so on. So we tried to create a platform for him in particular and some of his colleagues to educate colleagues, to educate our people about challenges facing people with disabilities, firstly because they represent minority and vulnerable groups in Kenya, but people with albinism who suffer from albinism, to say these are some of the challenges, and they were making concrete proposals about some of the policy positions that should be taken by governments around the continent. So yes, indeed, at that level we are aware, at a political party level we're also aware, but what is also missing is perhaps to say that we should create a platform where some of these programs find expression within the United Democratic Movement as a party and within the youth structures of the United Democratic Movement as well. I think insofar as the human rights, you see the challenge sometimes with political parties is that when we talk human rights, we talk about all human rights. We don't necessarily separate human rights because what guides us is this document, the founding document of the Republic of South Africa, and promote all human rights. And because you have associate structures in a political party, you'd find that the youth movement would focus on all issues, and including human rights that would have to do with youth, but guided by the master document of the party. But then if you have other associate structures, they would deal with human rights challenges that are faced, say, for example, by women, by children, but under the very same umbrella. So you tend to specialize. But people, because at times, they don't hear the senior party leaders talking about these issues. They think the party does not have a position on these matters or never talks about them. But it's because other people in the organization do speak about these issues when the time comes and issues become relevant. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. We will, just to make everyone feel comfortable, we will not be just posing questions to Honorable Nkwankwa. We have other leaders in the House that we can engage with because this is an open debate. So we will take the next question, or a point of order from what I was told.
Hi, again, it's Honorable Kantini here. To address Honorable Nkwankwa directly, because you use this term, the term albino is actually derogatory. In fact, universally, it is known as a derogatory term. So I am not an albino. I'm also not suffering from albinism. I have albinism. So also for the House at large to also know that the term used for any person with an inability is not that they are suffering from it, they have it, right? And that just for future note, I am not an albino, nobody is an albino except an animal species, like an albino snake or an albino bat or an albino rat. All right, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Quantini. Okay, we're now taking questions. We'll take Honorable Member with orange hair. Yes, Honorable Member there. Thank you. Please kindly, please introduce yourself so that we can refrain from describing you using other terms. Ne?
Okay. Good morning. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My name is Usanel Swetengwa, and I'm from the Eastern Cape. So I've got a question, and to pose it to the House at large, about the health sector. So now the problem is that we all know we have the high rate of teenage pregnancy, of HIV infections among the youth. And now the problem is our clinics are not youth-friendly. We have problems when you go to the clinics and they shut us out, where they say maspume, masambe, and where they don't even have content as nurses about sex, sexual reproductive information, and so forth. So now I'd like to know, what are you guys doing about that issue? Because now I feel, as we don't have youth-friendly clinics, that's one of the drives that, okay, fine, I won't go to the clinics. And that's when this rises higher and higher, the problems. So just want to know what's happening. What is the House at large doing? What is the UDM doing? What is our fellow ministers and so forth doing about the problem? Because it is a problem. Thank you.
All right, since the chairperson is not here, I suppose I have to answer that question. My humble apologies, no offense intended, ma'am, but I think it's a challenge at times, because look, when you go to Kenya, they put it in the terms in which I couched it, including the colleagues were there. So I think it also has to do with context and how people speak about these issues, because they are more liberal in their way of actually putting these things. As they were talking in the conference, they spoke along the lines of how I actually couch this thing. But in any event, I think the question has to do with clinics, and it's a service delivery issue. It's a service delivery problem in South Africa as a whole. I think even when you go to some of the clinics, even here in the Western Cape, that problem still persists. Whether you're dealing with issues of teenage pregnancy or general healthcare issues where people generally struggle to access quality health, basic health care. It needs vigilance, not only from political parties. There's only so much that we can do, even as we involve ourselves in community problems or some of the programs that involve communities. But it also means that as a community, what you should do is to understand that facility is there for yourselves and to serve you. And if there are any complaints or concerns around its failures to service you properly, they should be escalated to the relevant authorities and the necessary levels. But as parties, what you would have, for example, KTC, there are a number of instances where we went to KTC in the past where we're saying the facility itself is not in a good condition, right? The environment is also at times tends not to be conducive for anyone to go there and try to access basic health care. We try to have those campaigns, but in order for it to work almost on a daily basis properly, it needs to get the community involved. In my village, for example, where I come from in Ngaba, the clinic would close at 1 o'clock every Friday. At 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock Friday morning, 11 o'clock at times, it would be closed until Monday, up until the community decided to stand up. We went there a few times, and it was the issue. Went there week 1, week 2, it was the same problem. Sometimes they would even close at 10, right? And there'll be people who will have no access to basic health care for the whole weekend, until the community decided to stand up, got local leaders involved, and say we have to put an end to this issue. So it means that communities must get involved as we deal with some of these challenges.
Thank you. We'll take one last question. Unfortunately, time is no longer on our side. And we'll take a question from Honorable Savannah. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I have a question regarding the enforcement of action and acknowledgements of contributions from your behalf. I find that many political parties make a lot of promises towards us as the youth that they are unable to live up to, which breaks our will to making a difference in our country. It makes us feel as though we're just going to get promised a lot of stuff, but it's never going to happen. And then it makes us kind of belittled by the political party. So how can we trust in you that you are going to lead a revolution, not necessarily a revolution, but lead us towards getting better equality, better diversity, and democracy in our country? Thank you.
Thank you. I think the question of deepening democracy and ensuring is a responsibility that we all have. I think was it Thomas Jefferson who said the price of democracy is eternal vigilance. Look, when we make promises to you, we're going to continue to make promises. When I look at this page, it touches on a number of HIV, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and so on, and poverty, addressing issues of unemployment and inequality. It's a UDM manifesto. It's promises that we're making to you. But who's going to ensure that we fulfill these promises? It's a leadership question, firstly, on the part of the UDM, but there's also a responsibility on your part to make sure that you hold us to the promises we make to you before elections. You ask us questions. Look, for instance, in 2014, we came to you and campaigned and made promises. Maybe what you should be doing as we engage with you and we begin to campaign is to say, but in 2014, this is what you said. What did you do about these promises? It's accountability. It's accountability. You get us to account to you. But look, as a parliamentarian, if you were to say I'm a parliamentarian, yes, I'm a UDM member, but I'm an MP for everyone. Nothing stops any member of society, any citizen, from holding me to account on the basis of the promises we make even here in Parliament. But we think when we talk about accountability and promises at times, we think that only applies to the governing party. There are many things in our manifestos as individual political parties that one can consider to be low-hanging fruits that we ourselves can be able to do without us being in power. But what do? After elections, we take the manifesto, we throw it away and focus on other things, brush it up around other elections again, come and make promises and don't fulfill them because our people at times don't hold us to account on the promises we make them. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, may we kindly give a round of applause to Honourable Nkwankwa for being here.
Thank you.
We know that there are plenty of questions that you want to ask, but because time is also not on our side, we have to open to other sessions. You will still have the opportunity to engage with other leaders within the House. So during those sessions, you can then be able to ask the questions you weren't able to ask. So for now, thank you, and I will give the program back to the Honourable Speaker, Mr. Sluleko. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. We shall be moving on with our program, and I shall now be calling upon Honourable Ntsako Mkhabela, who will be facilitating the debate and who will be facilitating the debates on youth summits and steering committees. Let us please give them a round of applause. Honourable.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you still got your attention, and if anybody needs to, sorry, I take care of the kids, so if anybody needs to go to the bathroom, you know where it is, right? Okay, we have a children's summit. The session we're going to deal with now is on social justice and equally so freedom of expression. So in that vein and in that spirit, as I said to you yesterday when we arrived here, we're not here to be polite. I mean, we are here to be polite. Please and thank yous are very important. But we are here to speak our minds, express ourselves with respect, with respecting the dignity of the other person, but also listening to each other, but understanding that in this platform and in enjoying our freedom of speech, don't leave what you feel is important and needs to be said unsaid, right? In our discussion on social justice, I am going to open it to certain members of the House at certain times, as well as have a general discussion. But what we had done was that over the past 6 or so years, six or some years, youth have gathered in this House and in other platforms put together by the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund for the purpose of getting a memorandum from youth to government to say these are the voices of youth in terms of the vision and the dream that they have for South Africa, what young people need urgently, immediately to improve their lives. And I thought that the best place for us to start would be a reflection, a collective reflection of about 6 years worth of reflections and thoughts from young people that they've at each turn presented to the national government. With that said, I'm going to give the honourable member about 5 minutes to take us through some of the work that young people have done over the years.
Good morning to the House at large. My name is Huitiona Diale. I am a former children's ambassador from the Northwest. I've been an ambassador since 2014 actually. I was 15 years old when I was an ambassador. I was very motivated. I had so much energy. I was passionate about advocating for children. For the past 6-8 years as being ambassadors and many others beside me, we faced many challenges, especially representing children like you, representing people back home. And part of my review essentially is to talk to everyone, the House at large, to our stakeholders, to our CEO, to government, to sort of mitigate some of the problems that we've had for the past 6 years. I'd like to just highlight the goal of this platform, this dialogue that we're having today. We're not here to put on a performance to fill up seats in Parliament, because our dialogue stems from the inherent need for social change. We need to go back home with the networks we have created here and create social change. We need to create social campaigns that advocate for children with inabilities. We need to advocate for education, healthcare, for young people in social spaces like this to come out and say, government needs to do something, but we also as children need to do something to help government. I'd like to just go over some of the problems that we've had as ambassadors, and I'm speaking particularly to the fund and to our stakeholders. When we leave this space, usually what happens is as ambassadors we go out with a plan, we write our proposals, we draft letters and everything, but we don't have a response from government, from the fund, and I think that comes in with a lack of communication. A channel of communication seems to be missing, especially with children in this house. Our duty is not just as an ambassador, we select a leader and say, you are our voice. You have a voice as well. And we are encouraging government and the fund to create a channel post this summit to say, we want children to speak to us regularly. We want to have ideas where when we need data collection in the rural villages, we have someone there. We have someone who's doing something. And another big issue, and I think Honorable Member from the UDM spoke about, was accountability. We need to be accountable as stakeholders in this very house. As a delegate in this house, as ambassadors, as CEOs, as directors, as ministers, we need to come back a month from now, 2 weeks from now, with a report to say, what are we doing? Are we moving forward? We spoke about healthcare and education in rural villages. I mean, I don't come from the same background, but I understand what you're going through. And I want to leave this house knowing that where you come from, you will get that quality of education, you'll get those resources. And so I'm encouraging the fund, government, delegates, ORCs, directors, CEOs, whoever is here, we make a pledge together today and we say we are going to help children at large in the country, and we're not going to say it in front of the cameras just for the cameras, we're going to commit to it. A week from now, we're expecting a response from you. As ambassadors, we will respond to you. As children, we will respond to you. We need a response, we need a channel of communication because we build the South Africa together. When they count the population, they don't count people who are 22 and upwards. They count the children as well. Because we have a voice, we play a very key role in the economy, we play a very key role in democracy. And this country is for all of us. So I hope you hear where I'm coming from and you share the same sentiments, because I want us, when we ask questions with substance, because this house is about moving forward. This house is not about parading something. We need to ask questions that establish a sense of social change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Lovely. I think I'm going to throw it broadly to the House right now, because many of us, as I've said, have been involved in different platforms in engaging in the issues of what it is that the young South African youth would say, not only of themselves, but say to government too, as far as our collective vision for what we want improved, the lives we want to live, the experiences we want to have amongst each other, and the kind of communities we want to live in. So I think part of crafting an idea for how exactly we go about making change is being clear about the vision and the thing we're working towards. And I'm going to put it towards the House to say, dream together a little bit, imagine a little bit together, and say if you had to craft and make the South Africa you want, so that what we hand out, usually when people hand out memoranda, they are very official documents, printed out, put on paper, but we have a children's summit. Some of them can write, some of them cannot, some of them can read, some of them cannot, but they can mostly all express themselves and speak to the issues that we will have. So whilst there may be an official document presented, I think there can be no better document than first-hand accounts from the House to say this is the South Africa that we imagine for ourselves. So I will have it to the House to say, guys, if somebody said to you, express to yourselves, express to those in leadership, express to those who can make a difference, including yourselves, what is the South Africa that you guys are working towards?
Dumelang, my name is Hepa Mudise from the Northern Cape. I will be representing the youth of the Northern Cape. I am coming with a solution. We were discussing last night about what as we youth will we do. We have decided that there was a program that was saying that there was junior councillors, junior mayors. We want to reinstate that program because it was crushed, it was destroyed. So we want, as the youth, we want to deal only with the youth. So when you're a junior councillor, this is how I plan it. You're going to deal only with youth. They say that, with greater power comes greater responsibility. So if you have power as a councillor or as a mayor, you will know how will you deal with youth. Because the councillor deals with household, and a youth doesn't a leader of a household. A mother or a father is the leader of the household. That's why the junior councillor will only deal with youth in that community. And it will go with stations and up to a junior president, where we will deal now with the whole country nationally. I thank you all.
Members, because, you know, I'm old enough to make rules, right? And we're, as you say, we're empowered enough to be able to, if I could restrict our responses to about 30 seconds, that way more of us can speak. I think it's important that we all have our voices heard, and that may mean having to discipline ourselves when we have the opportunity to speak. But I do take your point, and I think your point is really about saying young people need to be given the space to have leadership, because once, as you say, if you have the power, you also then take on the responsibility. I see the hand right at the back and the hand right in front of it, and the one in the red. If we could have those three in succession, please.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'd like to ask, I'd like to know why, okay, you're saying that we can make
Honourable member at the black, please switch off your mic.
Thank you. No.
Members, please ensure that there's only one mic on at the same time, at once. It's the principle of only one person can be speaking for us to hear each other, right?
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. You keep saying how we envision South Africa and how us, the youth, can make South Africa better. But I'd like to know how effective that can truly be if we're not as diverse in this current situation. Because we are a democracy, we are diverse, we are the Rainbow Nation. But in order to really be effective to the new South Africa, I think it's very important to have a more diverse and more democratic youth in this building. Thank you.
Greetings to the House at Large. My name is Lona Yose, and I am a delegate from the Eastern Cape. My question goes towards psychological issues, because you find that in all the manifestos that are read from all the parties, and also things that have been said nationwide, you find that a lot of the issues based on psychological things are not focused on at all. Because there are schools, yes, that focus on mental issues that children have. For example, in East London, we have a school called Batesville Secondary School, whereas it focuses both on the mental side as well as academic side of things. But you find that other schools do not have the thing, whereas there are counselors at school, there are psychologists at school, whereas they help towards the welfare of a child, like the welfare of a child's mind. And speaking to all the dignitaries that are here, how are you guys going to help towards helping in that issue? Because you might find here some people sitting here might actually have mental issues or whatever, but then as soon as they start to express themselves relating to how they are, you find that they're treated differently just because of their mental situation. So from everyone here, what things can you do per se on trying to fix that, also on like a local as well as a national level? Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, if you've tried to eat a pack of sweets, you know that self-discipline is a very difficult thing if you've tried to stop. So this speaker here is going to try and help discipline the House. So once she puts up her hand, once you're making your input, you know that it's time to stop and put the sweet away, right? Okay, the speaker in the front.
Greetings to the House at large. My name is Vaman Ramasa and I'm from KwaZulu-Natal. My question basically deals with the South African Human Rights Commission. According to my research, the South African Human Rights Commission is tasked with monitoring, both proactively and by way of complaints brought before it, violations of human rights and seeking redress for such violations. It also has an educational role. So I feel what are the South African Human Rights Commission doing to enlighten the youth and children about human rights violations, both in rural areas and poverty-stricken areas? Because if youth know what the human rights are and if they are being violated, they can report these issues and basically solve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member, for that input. I do believe that we do have the Human Rights Commission in the House today. I think sometimes it's best to get it from the horse's mouth, and members from the Constitutional Court. It's not necessarily it's not the Human Rights Commission, it's members from the Constitutional Court. If I could give them 30 seconds to speak and perhaps address the members' inputs.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nolu Babalo Memese. I'm from Constitution Hill. I'm with my colleague Nogwanda Nzimande. I'm a bit nervous, but it's fine. We are here representing the Constitution Hill Education Project. We are often in partnership with the South African Human Rights Commission, which is a Chapter 9 institution, which, as you correctly point out, Mr. Musa, has a duty to educate, has a duty to answer calls of, for example, human rights violations in the education sector. I cannot particularly answer for them, but what I can tell you what we are doing. As Constitution Hill Education Project, we have a mandate, our sole mandate, every Saturday, is to go out and teach constitutional literacy to young people such as yourselves. We don't have the powers to give you all the rights, the correct education that you deserve, but we feel that there are young people who don't know what their rights are, and that's where you come in. There are people who have never held a copy of the Constitution in their hand, and we've given everybody today this particular booklet, which actually gives you the rights and freedoms that you deserve. So we're in the right direction because we're saying hold us accountable, hold government accountable, hold our leaders accountable. How do you do it? This book tells you how. Someone said in the Eastern Cape, sorry my darling, I'll be done now. Someone said in the Eastern Cape there's clinics which close at 11. That's not, Honorable Nkwankwa said, that's a service delivery issue. It's a human rights issue, guys. It's a human rights issue if you don't have access to healthcare, because this book says you do. And so if you want to enforce it, you need to know what it says. And I think that's what our role is, and that's why we are here. Okay.
Okay, if I can just add to that, sorry. 10 seconds. If I can just add to that.
Wait, who's stealing the sweets? Oh, it's you. Okay.
Yeah, it's me. If I can just add to that, I am imploring each and every single one of you to read that pack. That pack was made by myself and Nonolu, along with APSA, along with the DOJ and other organizations which basically were interested in giving you guys this knowledge. So please take it upon yourselves to acquaint yourselves with the knowledge that you've given to you and evangelize this constitution that you have with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm Bernadette Muthian, and I'm a commissioner with the CRL Rights Commission, which deals as a Chapter 9 dealing with issues of peace, friendship, culture, religion, and language. And I want to particularly remind us, after Deputy Speaker mentioned the importance of knowing your history, that people should also, especially the youth, know your culture. And in particular, people and adults abuse cultural practices and misuse it. And so in order for you to say no to abuses of culture or even religion and people who predate on young people in the country, you should learn what the origins of your culture is. For example, early marriage, underage marriage is not a cultural practice. When you're in a particular area and people are saying, this is our culture, you should say, no, it's not only not our culture, it's against the law and it's against our constitution. And this law and constitution, people died for the rights that we have today. So we must both appreciate our rights and we must be aware as young people that we have responsibility about these rights and towards our society. So always act with that in mind. Yes, I have these fabulous rights, but I must be responsible and continue contributing to society, just as all of you beautiful people are doing today.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Honourable Member. Members, do me a favor, just a second. I want to have 5 minutes in which I'm not sure how long the very Honourable Minister is going to stay with us. But if someone says to you, ride a rainbow and dream for a second, and say, what kind of South Africa do you want to live in? Not what's wrong with it. What do you want? What do you say? Short hand over there. Oh, sorry, that's very disrespectful.
What I would want is equality.
May you expatiate, member?
That's the only thing that I can think of.
Okay. A member with a flower in her hair.
I would like to see children getting the full education they need.
Thank you. Member with the, sorry guys, I can't, yes.
I would love to see an equal, to have equal education, let me say. To have the same things as, I don't want to say private schools, let me just say Model C schools, as I want to have a laboratory as they have in my township school. I want my education to be the same as theirs, no matter what. I want to have the maximum teachers that they have also at my school. I want quality education in South Africa. Thank you.
I'd want to live in a South Africa that doesn't have any problems. And since one of our biggest problems is unemployment, which normally leads to gangsterism and prostitutes, I think it's called. So if we can stop unemployment, we can solve a lot of problems and get the South Africa we want to live in.
Oh, so much power. I think before that happened, the member with the red shirt had his hand up. I mean, her hand up.
Good day to all. My name is Alwande Lewis. I am 11 years old and I am from KZN. Sorry. We did touch on yesterday about local tourism, of the tourism that attracts other people from different countries, which we are decreasing from in this country. We used to have a high level, but now are decreasing, which is caused by the parliament, not all, but parliament, with the discussions and decisions that are made in the parliament determine the future we as the youth will have. The parliament doesn't ask us as the youth what we want for tourism. I would like to know more about where I come from, the South Africa we have now and the South Africa we used to have, but with more people, decisions and politicians made without us. I don't have an opinion, or we don't have an opinion on the say of tourism, which is I would love to create more tourism in South Africa.
On a point of order, Chair.
On what grounds?
Oh, okay.
I don't see where the order is coming from.
It's coming from here.
Where?
From here.
Oh, okay.
From here, Chair. From the Ambassador of the Northwest. Chair, on a point of order, I would like to raise something, Comrade Chair. Can you kindly note hands so that you can be able to participate, all of us? Because if you're going to raise on one hand and then go back on one hand, so it's tiring to raise our hands and take them back down, take them up, take them back down.
That's fine. Member, if I may please put you to work for me. Sorry, this is a children's summit. I need you to assist me. You see better than I do where I'm sitting, who is putting their hand up in which order and who needs to speak. So if I could ask you to check from that side and you can kind of point out the members as you see them raising their hands in order to assist me. Not so?
Okay, it's fine, but I was also raising my hand also.
No, it's fine. It's fine. When you have had your say, member, you will then assist. Not so?
Okay,
and fine. Then if I can ask a member from this side to do, a member with a, you. No. The gentleman over here, once you have had your say, if you could assist me with this side too. There are many hands in the air. It's maybe 3 eyes could be better than just mine, right? Perfect. If I can allow the member to finish his input and then give you an opportunity, him an opportunity, and then you will assist me. Yes. Thank you.
My name is Prince from Mpumalanga, CBT, Mkondo. I'd like to add on what Karishma just said. So, okay. As I want to live in South Africa where the government doesn't promote the level of the high rate of teenage pregnancy by giving grant to teenagers and so on. I want to live in a South Africa where the government promotes, where the government tries to decrease the level of unemployment by creating jobs for us, teenagers and the youth and so forth. Thank you.
Members, before you start, I will please ask you to keep yourselves to 30 seconds because as you can see, the hands are hot in here, right? Thank you.
Noted, Comrade Chair. Honorable Chair, what I would like to see happening, most especially in the higher education department sectors, FETs and the government is failing young people a lot, Comrade. Because what it does, it doesn't provide young people with opportunities to make practicals. In order, FETs are making young people to go to their schools, and then after going to their schools, and then they were required from them also to find a workplace where they can do practicals in order for them to graduate in those FETs. So I would like the government to keep a very close observance on that issue so that it can be able to be highlighted to assist young people in order for them to be able to get a work.
Member?
Good morning to the House. Sitting firmly and boldly in front of you is Sinovio Mangai from the Western Cape province and the junior mayor of the city of Cape Town. What everyone here is elaborating on inequality, and I actually want to dive into that. I'm saddened that a representative from the Democratic Alliance isn't here as the provincial government of the Western Cape, because as the community of the Western Cape, our patience is running out. Because, yes, so now what I want to know from the leaders that are here from the UTM, may they please give us feedback as to why the structures they have in place to promote unity and equality, why are they failing us here in the Western Cape and in South Africa as a whole? What are they doing to improve them, those structures? And may they please give us feedback before we leave. I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, members. I'm going to give 2 minutes, which will give space for 4, right? I know that there are members right at the back there who haven't had an opportunity because I can't see so well, so I don't see them very well. There's a member who's equally, who has glasses there in the back with the red lanyard. I can see the glasses, see glasses. If you could please have your input. There was somebody waving right next to you. If they could have an input too. I'll go to the girl with the red. There, yes. And I remember a hand here when we first started. It was yours, right? Right at the beginning. Was it his? Yes, we'll go there. That'll give us 4. And if you guys keep yourself to 30 seconds, we'll have 2 minutes. If you keep yourself to 10 seconds, we'll have more people.
All right.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. As a former ambassador for the Western Cape in 2014, part of our manifesto was that in our Chapter 9 state institutions, we can see a South African Human Rights Commission, a Commission for Gender Equality. And in 2014, we asked that we could start a Commission for Children's Rights. Just for the simple reason that even if we look at statistics, that it shows us that children's rights have been violated over these years. And I feel that a National Commissioner for Children's Rights could help us to stop the violation of children's rights. And I would also like to know how far along we are with that commission, or the planning of that commission, because it was part of our manifesto in 2014, and all we want is a report back on the manifestos that we've been having since 2013. I thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Tegan. I'm representing Western Cape. All I want for the future for South Africa, I want us as youth to stop complaining about things, and if you know nothing's going away, just to stand up and do something yourself, because once they see you doing something, then they will come help you. So why we keep on like telling you do this, you do that? Why we have to stand up ourselves and do something about it? That's the end of the story. Thank you.
Sorry, Honourable Member, thank you very much. Thank you for the comment that was made by our Honourable Member there, but he took 1 minute, which means that he's also decreased the time for the other speakers. If the chairperson allows us to extend the time that was allocated for each speaker, then I'll increase the time. But for now, I think that the opportunity for other speakers to actually speak as well has been decreased. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My name is Tanki Somoyo from the Free State. My issue is about the LGBTI people. We feel like the government is failing us as the LGBTI people because we have many cases of the LGBTI members that were filed, but then there were no legal actions that were took towards those cases. The cases were about rape, LGBTI members were being killed. So I would like to see the LGBTI people being free to live in this world because we are all human beings after all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm Pamela London from the Northern Cape. Okay, I don't know if this makes sense, but I dream of a South Africa where I can wake up and have both parents at home, where I can have a meal before I get to school. I dream of a South Africa where I can get to school, where I am provided with whatever the equipment I need to prepare me for the South Africa, advanced South Africa and advanced world that we're going to. I dream of a South Africa that gives me a space and places where I can express myself fully, like facilities. And I also dream of getting home to both my parents, and I can actually feel free to allow my father to kiss me goodnight without fearing molestation. Thank you.
Good day, everybody. I dream of a South Africa where sorry about that. I dream of a South Africa where we have more mentorship and more positive, more positive, more positive role models, because I think that if we all stand together, we can change this world. That the youth of today is, I don't know.
Fair enough, Honorable Member. Thank you very much. Guys, I think part of the purpose of this is to, and I think you guys demonstrate this well, that the amount of dreaming can never run out. I think we could go until the cows come home if we said, can we each input into the kind of South Africa that we want? But as we had discussed yesterday, I had requested members of the House to share parts of themselves with us and to share the work that they do. Because you have expressed the challenges that we as young people have had in dealing with government, in having a response, in having what we want done for us. We've just now taken a little bit of a detour in being able to say, what is it that we keep saying to the government, we keep saying to our parents, we keep saying to those in leadership, we want. But as any good person with good manners will tell you, want is not a good thing in life. What we also then did was to say, what are we doing and what do we make ourselves responsible for? And it was at that moment that I had requested members of the House. Where's the list? What are the names? I had requested members of the House. We may not be able to go through all of you, but I will ask some of you to stand up. And again, guys, I need you to discipline yourselves to 30 seconds to stand up and share, not just with the House, but share with those who are in positions of power to say, this is what young people go back, when they finish here, they go back to their homes, their villages, their towns, and these are the kinds of things that they're doing. So I will call a name, and if you could stand, and again, guys, please be respectful of the time that we all have here together. And in as much as you have a great passion for what you have to share, if you could be structured in how you do so. If I could have Honorable Ms. Sasha and Savannah please make their presentations to the House.
Okay, can I just please sit, but I'm over here. Good morning, honorable members. So I'm Sasha, my sister Savannah is over there. It is safe to say that today is a true example that the youth of today is the future of tomorrow. Education and empowering the youth is something that I'm very passionate about. And in the late Mandela's words, he once said, education is the most powerful tool, sorry, a little bit nervous, you can use to change the world. However, to this day, there are still many children who cannot read and many schools without adequate facilities. I started Learn to Read, Learn to Lead, which is a series of books that I have written by the help and illustrated by my sister. The books aim to teach children how to learn to read and count. So the first book teaches children how to read and will be launched in Cape Town on the 20th of July. The books will be sold in stores as well as given out in informal settlements. And 50% of the profit is then split equally to go to the Nelson Mandela's Children's Fund, as well as the Tshwane Welfare Fund. The rest of the profit will then go towards converting shipping containers into classrooms for rural areas that don't have schools. So I plan and I commit to giving every child an equal opportunity to learn to read and be able to write regardless of their circumstances. Thank you.
If we could please have the representative, guys, in advance, a representative from Young Mambazo coming in for their 30 seconds. But in the meantime, if I could ask Abongela to share with the House in 30 seconds, Abongela, what she does. You can sit.
7 years ago, I discovered that in most rooms, I'm the only person with albinism, and often I'm also the only person with an inability. I then started to do research in high school near my private high school. I went to the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy. Down the road was a school for special needs called Sibonile Secondary. I discovered that that wasn't the only school that had kids who were in special schools with albinism and that were misplaced and that were hidden in societies and were hidden in villages. And so people with albinism and other people with inabilities are never integrated into the mainstream society. So I then created Holding Albus as an NPC that would then create and empower people with albinism, with inabilities, and build leadership qualities, skills, to be brought into mainstream schools, to learn like everybody else, to teach society how to accept difference, and in that way, generating a sort of sustainable income for the people who are in the programs. I do reach out to everybody in this house, leadership members, Sector 9 organizations, to please reach out to Holding Albus to create partnerships, because I do think this is a huge project that needs every individual to join us, and I apologize for running over time.
Your apologies are sweet and so accepted. Dumisan Ndlovu, Honorable Member Ndlovu, could you share with the House what it is that you do?
Greetings to all. I'm Dumisan Ndlovu. I'm from KZN in Pietermaritzburg. I stay in Kinos's Children's Home, and I'm in a special school as well. So my plan is to start my own business, because in a special school, what we do things that they show talents too much. So my talent is to do woodwork stuff. So I'm planning to do my woodwork stuff and sell it around, then employ more special learners to my business, so we can't have people who don't have jobs like others, because most of special school children, they don't have work because they don't have grade 12s like in other places. Thank you.
Guys, again, we could, if I had to share with everyone the amount and the scope of amazingness that comes in this room, we may age somewhat. Some of them may end up voting by the time they leave the room. If I may ask that later on we have a dinner together, if I may ask that the House and the members continue this conversation, and we continue to share with each other what it is we're doing, what it is we're passionate about, what it is we are doing to strive and make a change wherever we are. You may not have been heard in this particular platform, but I do think that we have plenty of time together between now and the time we go home for us to share with each other and imbibe each other with a passion for that which we do. The purpose of beginning to share some of this work, though, was to say to young people, despite the challenges we face, despite the challenges in our local community, despite the deafness sometimes of grown-ups, young people are still doing what they can where they are to make a difference. I have to, unfortunately, the clock is my master today, and it's determining what we do and how we do it. But as I say, we have time later on, and I think we're going to take over the dinner a little bit, and we're going to own the dinner and continue to share these stories with each other and to know each other better, right? In the meantime, though, I would like to invite a very honored guest, but I cannot, so I'm going to ask Morongwa Rampila to please come and help us introduce the Minister of Tourism for us and take us into the next session.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to the Speaker, Deputy Speaker, our Honorable Minister, and Honorable Members. I'm going to introduce to you the Minister who held many portfolios in our democratic government. He has held the portfolio related to agriculture, science and technology, and now tourism. He's one of the 3 remaining cabinet members from Tata Nelson Mandela's first cabinet. I was tempted to name the other 2, but I think it should be a homework for you guys to know who are the other two who served with our honorable members in the previous space when Tata Mandela was still with us. I'm happy to introduce to you Minister of Tourism, Ntate Hanekom. Minister, we are looking forward to listen to you. As someone who knew our Madiba so intimately and who shared his ideals and beliefs. Over to you, Minister.
Hello, everybody. Dear Speaker, I'm not going to call you Honourable Speaker, I'll just assume you're honourable. I'm not going to call you honourable members, I'm just going to assume you're all honourable. Am I right in my assumption? Yes, I'm right. I can see it. You're not only honourable members, honourable people, but you're special people. You know, us politicians, we like to hug babies and say nice things to people and stuff like that. So what we often say is, gee, you're such beautiful people. But you are. You're really beautiful people. But there's an African proverb that says, beauty alone does not put food on the table. So, of course, you're very beautiful people. I'm a very beautiful person, I think. But that doesn't put food on the table on its own. That's an African proverb. The thing about all of you gathered here today is that you are very special people. You are young leaders, and you are not self-declared, self-appointed young leaders. You were chosen. You were chosen not because you are beautiful, and I want to say again, you're very beautiful. You were chosen because you are doing good things in your community. You are chosen because of what you have done and what you are doing in your communities, and that makes you truly special. So, it's actually a very, very big privilege and an honor for me to be here today. And I'm sure the Deputy Speaker feels the same, and all of us feel that way. I am not older than you, I'm, you know, not as young as you. There are different ways of describing different things. So I'm in the category of the less young, am I right? Slightly less young. I've been in Parliament for 24 years, and it's been a privilege. And for you to occupy these seats today is a privilege. You know, we are traditionally called in Parliament, we're called honourable members, although sometimes we don't behave honourably. And the challenge is to behave honourably, not to be called honourable, but to be honourable, and to be a good citizen, as many of you have spoken about. My name, by the way, is Derek. Derek, yes. In Parliament, when this man, you know, presides over the House and we call each other by first name, they say, no, honourable member, that's disrespectful. You know, he is an honourable member. Well, today it's your Parliament, not that other Parliament, so you set the rules. And if you're okay with me being called Derek, you might, because of my being a little bit not as young as you might want to call me Uncle Derek. Okay, you may call me Uncle Derek. Or grandfather, whatever you like, whatever you like. But we'll all assume we'll show respect to each other because we are deserving of that respect. Not because we are elected into any position, but we earn that respect. That's very important. So in these 24 years that I've been in Parliament, there have been some really memorable moments, some great moments, and it's been a privilege. The first one, of course, and this is the year, you are here because of the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. So a lot of what I'm going to say to you now, I'm going to, you know, quote Nelson Mandela, that great person, and I'm going to tell you that one of my big privileges was to have served in his cabinet, as you've just heard, for the first 5 years. And one of the memorable moments is when Nelson Mandela took the podium in that other chamber that you either have seen or you will see, and he addressed the nation as our first democratically elected president of the country for the first time. Now, that was a great moment for South Africa. Most of you were either not born then or very, very young, but it was a great and memorable moment. Another memorable moment was when President Thabo Mbeki delivered, and you can Google it, you can read it, his very, very famous I Am an African speech, which I really recommend you read when you get a moment. The third memorable moment came quite recently, when President Cyril Ramaphosa delivered his State of the Nation address, coming out of a difficult period, and delivered the State of the Nation address, which gave new hope, which people often refer to as the Tumamina speech, the new dawn. Well, it's not for him to just declare a new dawn, it's for us, all of us, to make it a new dawn, a really new dawn. It's up to us. It's not up to him, it's up to us. So, and then the final memorable moment, and the moment that I will cherish, is today. Today is great. This is really one of the most precious moments I have ever had in my 24 years sitting in Parliament. I've learned, yeah, give yourselves. I've been enriched in the short session that we have. I've learned. I've been inspired. I'm almost overwhelmed. I'm a little bit nervous speaking to you because there's such an abundance of talent around this room, talent that I know I do not have myself. So I am utterly overwhelmed, actually. And it is a magic moment. I would like to suggest to the organizers of the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund and to the Deputy Speaker over here, let us make this an annual event. Let us make this a regular annual event. Because it has real value, and it is new, and it is a new dawn, so let's start doing new things that turn the current situation, turn things around. And you are the turners arounders. You are the people that can help us turn around our country into something positive. Because you come here with your dreams. You come here with your ideals. Now, in the political discourse, we often say, well, you know, that's idealistic, and we write it off. No. If we are not driven by high ideals, what drives us? Are we just driven because we want to make money? Are we just driven because we want to occupy positions of power? No, we should be driven by that higher ideal. You spoke a lot about your dreams, and you shared your dreams with us, and that was great. But since I said I'm going to quote Nelson Mandela a lot, I'll tell you what Nelson Mandela said about dreams. He said, a winner. Now, I am assuming that every one of you is going to be a winner and that you have set your sights high. But he says, a winner is a dreamer who never gives up. So the dream alone is not enough, but the dream is important. Hold on to the dream. Do what you need to do to realize that dream. A winner is a dreamer who never gives up. Quote Nelson Mandela. Quote Nelson Mandela, it's not where you start, but how high you aim that matters for success. Can I repeat? It's not where you start, but how high you aim that matters for success. And third quote of Nelson Mandela is this: it is what we make of what we have, not what we are given, that separates one person from another. It's what we make of what we have. And that often means coming to terms and embracing what we have and what we are. And many people said that. And so I've learned an awful lot. I've also learned about people who are different, people with what we call disabilities. I've learned about albinism. I think we all have. Not people, I don't suffer from old age. I just have it. I just have it. There's some people here who may just have albinism. That's something that we've learned today. Those are important learnings because we should be learning from each other all the time. We agree on that? And that is why these sessions are so important. So, if I may do my final quote from Nelson Mandela, it's about disability. And this is what he said. I just read it. I cheated. I read it while you were talking. I Googled it. You got it. And this is what he said. It's a somewhat longer one, but a very important one, because it's also related to the point made about people with different sexual orientations, people who are different. And even the word different needs to be questioned, because different from what? Who sets the standard? Who determines the norm? Who determines what it should be? Who determines that? So, this is what Nelson Mandela says. It is not a question of patronizing philanthropy towards people with disabilities. They do not need the patronage of the I think I've got it, I wrote it down, but I wrote it down wrongly, but they don't need the patronage of people who are not disabled. It is not for them to adapt to the dominant and dominating world of the so-called non-disabled. It is for us to adapt our understanding of a common humanity, to learn of the richness of how human life is diverse, to recognize the presence of disability in our human midst as an enrichment of our diversity. I'm going to just reread that last sentence, and you can Google it yourselves and you'll find it. To recognize the presence of disability in our human midst as an enrichment of our diversity. So one could put it differently, but I believe that we should give more recognition and more emphasis on our sameness. So the person who is a bit different from me in terms of skin color, a bit different from me in terms of being a woman and not a man, a bit different from me being a bit younger than I am, we are the same. We have the same desires, we have the same needs, we have the same emotions, we come from a common humanity. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit when I speak about tourism. I mustn't speak for too long, because this is meant to be an interactive session as well. So I've got to quote to you, though, because so much of your reference points, so many of your reference points have been the constitution of the country. Often we forget to include the preamble, indeed the constitution of the country, as my good friend from the UDM pointed out to you. It is, the constitution of the country is the supreme law of the country. And he showed you his book several times. Where are you now? There you are. I don't care which party you belong to, but I value what you said. And I think what we should do is start valuing each other for what we are, not for what party we represent. And we should look to people for what they do and what they are, not because I say I come from a particular party. I'm not even going to tell you which party I come from. You can Google it. So the preamble says, I'm not going to read you the whole preamble, but it says, we, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustices of the past. You are here from the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, and we honor this year in particular great people like Nelson Mandela and Albertina Sisulu, who would have turned 100 years, both of them, would have turned 100 years old this year. We honor them this year. And this is what the Constitution says. We honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land. Preamble of our Constitution. We respect those who have worked to build and develop our country, and we believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. Doesn't that just say it all? Yes. South Africa belongs to all who live in it, equally united in our diversity. Okay. So that's this beautiful constitution that we have. We are blessed, dear comrades, dear young leaders, dear colleagues. We are blessed with having had such incredible leaders in our country. We often let them down. We often disappoint them. If we were just to walk in their footsteps, we will not go wrong in this country. And as I said, it was a huge honor for me to have served in Tata Madiba's cabinet those first 5 years. What are the endearing qualities that I observed, that I felt? He wasn't just a man of great wisdom, and I can quote hundreds of quotes on hundreds of topics, and you'll realize this is a man of great wisdom. But he was a man of great humility. He was a man of great discipline. By the way, let me tell you, and I think our honorable members who are in that other parliament, not in this parliament, can really learn from you, can learn about discipline from you. Because I've never sat in such a disciplined session of Parliament. So respectful of each other. Man, you give us hope. You give us hope. I hope you don't change, though. I hope one day when some of you occupy the seats of parliament, you don't resort into the same kind of behavior that we do. You think, oh, now I'm there. Now I can heckle. Now I can abuse people. Now I can make a noise. And now I can just sing to the platforms. No, be different. Some of you said we are advocates of change. Can I strengthen that a little bit? Not only be advocates of change, be the change yourself. You must be it. So, where were we? That's Madiba. It's not only the wisdom that he had, the leadership qualities he had, but the great humility that he had, and respect for people. And I think that is the endearing quality. And that is something that we somewhere lose. We expect people to respect us. They will. They will if we respect them. You will respect me if I respect you. I believe it. So it's up to all of us to take on those qualities, and we will make South Africa a better place, a much better place. So, tourism. Some of you are tourism ambassadors. I didn't even know exactly which audience we were going to speak to. You are young people. The difference between tourism and other sectors of the economy, a very important difference, is that, yes, there are very exciting careers in tourism. Some of you might find a career in a restaurant or in a hotel or as a tour guide. Some of you actually might become owners of hotels or owners of restaurants or owners of tourism businesses. But the difference is we all do tourism. We don't have to be working in tourism to do tourism. Tourism actually, that thing of traveling around the country, people coming to South Africa, seeing it, South Africans traveling around our own country, seeing it and experiencing it, that connects people. Now, you are very privileged because you are actually tourists. You're not only young leaders, because you come from other places and now you're in Cape Town. You'll be going to Robben Island, I believe, tomorrow. Am I right? What a privilege. What a privilege, because we need to get to grips with who we are and where we come from. There's another, it is a World Heritage Site, Robben Island, and of course it's the place where Tata Madiba spent a quarter of a century. He stayed there and suffered there so that our country can be free. But it's up to you to make sure that this freedom that he fought for and others fought for becomes a real and meaningful and sustainable freedom in everyone's life. That's another quote from Nelson Mandela, is that I cannot be free, or we are not free, until the last one is free. So we cannot say we've achieved that freedom until everyone is free. And that freedom means freedom from discrimination, freedom from stereotyping, freedom from hunger, freedom from being the victim of gangsterism, the freedoms that you yourselves articulated in your dream. So those are the freedoms that we continue to fight for. Tourism helps people connect with each other. You have had the great privilege and still have the great privilege of having been chosen as leaders and being here together. And I hope, by the way, you are the picture of the diversity that is the dream of our country. You come from many different parts of the country. You have different colors of skin. You have different sexual orientations. So there's a great deal of difference amongst you. But what unites you is common ideals. Commonness, the sameness, unites you. I hope that you forge permanent friendships, because that is how we'll get to our dream of a non-racial, non-sexist South Africa, is when people break the barriers and become friends, so that your children, so we must speak about you are the future, but you will have children yourselves, and your children have to grow up in a very different environment, even from the one that you are growing up in, which is very different from the ones that we grow up in. So you've got to make the difference so that your children do not see. We must dream of a country where the color of your skin does not define you, where your ability or non-ability does not. In our country, you must raise your voices, and you must say, not in our name, because we believe in the dream. We believe in Nelson Mandela's dream of a non-racial, non-sexist South Africa. Do we? We do. But then stand up for it and take people on, take us on when we behave in a way that will not help us get to that dream. Take us on when we foster racial hatred. So there are many things that you have to do. Tourism connects people. So you'll go to Robben Island and you'll have a rich experience there. We have other World Heritage sites in our country that tells us about our common roots, and this is where I'm going to end. Cradle of Humankind tells us a very, very important story. Marupeng. Have you heard of it? Yes. It tells us the story of our common ancestry. That wherever we are in the world today, not only in South Africa, you might be, we heard about China. You're living in China, you're living in Canada, North America, you're living in Europe. Our common roots are from this African continent. So a famous anthropologist, actually paleontologist, I hope some of you are going to become paleontologists. You don't even know what that is. Oh, you do? You see there, I made the terrible mistake of assuming something. Thank you for correcting me. So you know what paleontologists are. I think what's important for us to do is to celebrate the fact that this African continent, what has it done? With all of its difficulties, it has given the world humanity. And he chose a career in tourism, and he is supposed to come up here now, wherever. That's you. I knew I recognized you.
Please rise.
Is it okay if he sits right there? Because we're going to have a little exchange.
No,
he's going to... Sorry?
It's okay, you can sit.
It's okay. So you are going to sit right there. But, you know, I can tell you about, you know, people who have started realizing their dreams because of hard work. But, you know, that becomes very theoretical. But when Sabu tells you, then he's going to tell you his story, a real story of how he got there. And I hope that will inspire you as well. So, Sabu, tell us your story. How did you start? What got you into tourism? You can introduce yourself first.
Okay. Greetings to honorable member. Please allow me to greet you, Minister of Tourism, the CEO of Mandela Foundation, to everyone that I already mentioned, and to all the leaders that are here. It is an honor and a pleasure for me to be standing here and be part of this prestigious dialogue. For those who don't know me, my name is Siyabulela Siaka.
You have to be quite quick because, you know, my boss here has said we don't have much time.
Okay.
So don't go into great length, very short. Say who you are,
okay,
and then tell us immediately, how did you start your tourism business?
I'm a founder and the owner of Ubizo Events and Tours. We started Ubizo 2008, where we're showcasing the richness and the heritage of where we come from, the local communities.
This is in Langa Township.
Place where you can have a genuine engagement with the locals. I strongly believe there's nothing better than the local communities, because that's where you get the true reflection of Ubuntu.
So not everyone here knows, you know, what tourism businesses do. Can you just briefly describe what does your business actually do?
I won't do anything else because it's one of the best jobs on earth, where you just brag about where you come from, right? And you send invoices to people. But trust me, I wish it was that easy, but it's not. It's a lot of hard work. It's about understanding the richness of where we come from and having the ability to share that with the rest of the world.
So was it tough to start this business? Can you just give us a sense of, you know, some of the challenges that you had to overcome?
It's never been a...
Well, thank you so much. You can push your button and that red light goes off, and then, and now I'm told it's going to be another questions and answers and engaging session. I'm very glad, by the way, that you agreed to continue with it tonight during dinner, because I'll also be there tonight because we want to hear, we are hungry actually, hungry to hear more of your voices and to hear you speak. You see, when I said we are hungry, I saw some people say, yes, yes, they meant hungry in the stomach. I meant I'm hungry to hear more of you speak.
Honorable members, can we please bear, because we only have a few minutes from now until we break for lunchtime. Do we have people who would like to pose a few questions?
Yes, Honorable.
Okay, please, honorable members, before I open my eyes, can we please put our hands down? Just to make this fair, honorable members. Honorable members, I've already recognized 3 hands from this side. It's this honorable member with the blue jersey. That's one right there with the one that is navy, and that one at the back with the black jersey. No, you. Yes. Okay, they will be each given 30 seconds, and they will speak consecutively, so starting with you, honorable member.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for recognizing me. Honorable member, I will not be asking you as the Minister of Tourism, but I will be asking you a question as a Member of Parliament and our leader. So in 2015, your former colleague
Goes for schools. Well, if you know of any case of money that was allocated for the building of a school that wasn't used for that, then you must take it up. You must hold us to account. That's your job. Thank you.
We shall be having the next 3 hands from this side, and I've already seen them. The first one is that one with the red jersey, honorable member. The second one is that one at the back. I think the jersey is navy. And the third one is right here with the gray jersey. Yes. These, as usual, you'll be speaking consecutively, 30 seconds each. You may proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for recognizing me. What is the government doing in promoting entrepreneurship program in young people? Because government should be doing much more to create long-term jobs and not just short-term working opportunity. In the absence of formal work opportunity, it needs to create an environment that is more friendly to entrepreneurs and help young people learn more about entrepreneurship. So what programs are you introducing to young people that will help them start their small businesses so they can create employment in their small communities? Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable member. Just points of clarity. We are advised that given that the honorable minister we have here before us is the Minister of Tourism, it is more relevant that the questions that we ask relates to tourism, as that is his field of expertise, honorable members. Honorable member, you may proceed.
Thank you for the recognition, Honorable. My name is Nombuso from Gauteng. The question is, what is the government doing, or has the government taken any steps in removing experience as part of the requirements for graduates that are looking for job? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. Josiah Masango here, the 2013 Ambassador. Allow me, Speaker, to differ from my honorable members, fellow colleagues here. I would ask for advice from the Honorable Minister of Tourism, because we're facing an issue of support here. How can you maybe advise us on how to persuade the private and the public sector to invest more in the NMCF, because we lack resources and such? I'll elaborate more in the Galadina, but how can you advise, since, well, I think maybe Or I think maybe conversing in your tourism department, because South Africa, I read about tourism. Tourism is not taken seriously in this country. So how do you persuade people to tour more and to look at this beautiful
Thank
country?
you, Honorable Member. Your time is up.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, I hope you can see how strict these yeah, you're recruiting. So you have your career carved out for you. Very, very quickly, because obviously I can speak for a long time on many of these things, and we don't have a long time. I was, by the way, before I became Minister of Tourism, I was Minister of Science and Technology, and once upon a time I was the Minister of Agriculture and Land Affairs. So I should know a little bit more than just about tourism. I'm trying to anyway, and I'm learning. The tourism not being taken seriously, well, I think under the, I'm going to go backwards in the questions, under the current president, he is taking tourism very seriously because he's taking our economic challenges very seriously. And tourism is the one economic sector that can help us get out of the low growth that we're experiencing currently and get us out of it reasonably quickly. It is also a sector of the economy that creates a lot of jobs. In other words, it's an employment-intensive sector, unlike some other sectors that are also important for the economy but may not translate into the same number of jobs. I can go into that in some detail, but there are two parts to tourism. You must take tourism seriously yourselves. You must realize that if we're going to get more tourists coming to South Africa, and it is those more tourists that help create the jobs. So we've got to get the tourists coming to South Africa. So every one of us must be a tourism ambassador, every one of us, so that we make the experience of a tourist in South Africa, we make it a really good experience. Even when they go to Robben Island, we are doing things to make Robben Island a more profound experience. So the tourists who go to Robben Island tell all of their friends all over the world that this is something that you have to do sometime in your life, all over the world. But South Africans as well. We want to encourage South Africans to see more of their own country. And we want you to help us do that, because it has real and lasting value. You know, those of you who have been lucky enough to have gone on a holiday somewhere in the course of your childhood, if you like, those are endearing and enduring memories. And those are opportunities where we connect with other people and we break down barriers between people. So tourism has a value beyond the economy. Okay, on the how do we get into work? It is a difficult one because we go and we get our education and it does not guarantee a job. And it doesn't guarantee a job because we have a high level of unemployment. In other words, we cannot absorb all of the people, even those that have gone through matric or who have university qualifications, because there aren't enough jobs. And the only way that we address that problem is by growing the economy and ensuring that more jobs are to be created, more permanent jobs. The value of the short-term jobs, while they are not the ideal solution, they're very, very important, like the expanded public works program, the community works program. So even the short-term temporary jobs put food on the table. And they give some real workplace experience. So for you, some of you who either have gone through school or about to go to school, one of the programs introduced in the short term that he has been president, short period that he has been president, one of the things that President Cyril Ramaphosa has done is he's persuaded the business sector to come on board. And the business sector has undertaken to open up 1 million opportunities for interns. So interns means you come out of university, you don't have a job immediately, but you can be placed in a business and you get real workplace experience. Many of those interns get absorbed finally into full-time jobs. So there are many initiatives that we have to take to address the very, very serious challenge in our country of unemployment, of joblessness. One of you correctly said, it's the poverty, it's the unemployment that leads to gangsterism. It leads to drug abuse and all sorts of things. So one of our biggest challenges is to create jobs. Your chances of being employed are greatly enhanced if you go through education and you do well in education. So you must know that your chances once you are a graduate or even if you have a postgraduate qualification, your chances of getting a good job are much higher than a less qualified person. So make that one of your goals, to do well at school and to get to the point where you become highly employable. But at the end of the day, it's about us growing our economy, and we must grasp that, and we must move away from some of the populist statements, etc. We know that the jobs are not going to follow unless the economy grows, and we've all got to grasp that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've recently been informed that the Honorable Minister, fortunately, has more time to spend with us today. So we will be continuing. Shall be selecting 3 more hands from this side. The first one was this one, there by the back, yes, Honorable Member with the glasses. The second one was that one. The Honorable Member with the glasses right there. I think the Honorable Member I'm referring to knows who I'm talking about. The second one is that one right here. Yes, Honorable Member. And the third one is there at the far back with the blue jersey. Starting with you, Honorable Member. 30 seconds for each speaker, and you're not allowed to speak for more. You can proceed.
Point of order, Speaker. Your selection is very unfair, Speaker. Your selection is very unfair. You cannot select hands from that side only. From these rows, 1, 2, 3 rows, you have already selected a hand here.
Okay.
I've been raising my hand for a very long time, Speaker, and since the minister was speaking, and this question that I had is directed to tourism.
Since Honorable Member, we are in a gathering in which
no, let us protect you, Speaker. Can you protect you?
Who's that?
Can you protect you, Speaker?
No, I would like to. It's my house anyway. I would like to say that. No, with all due respect, Honorable Member, I would like to say that since, okay, I am a child, I have every right to make a mistake. Obviously, the system in which I am using to select the hands would not be perfect, but since we are in a gathering in which we are here to find solutions rather than elaborate on problems, do you have like a certain alternative that we can use that is rather better than the one that we are already using? And if so, please share with us. Please share. Can we call, Honorable Member, you can proceed, yes.
Thank you. My name is Thabo Mujaki. I'm from Northern Cape. South Africa is one of the poorest countries when it comes to tourism because of some of our South African people travel in and out of the country, not in the country, they travel to the other countries, like for USA, for example. So then I was thinking, Minister, how would it be like if we make a program with people such from people from Langer Street and people from tourism, like a program called maybe Learn SA, to show people the beauty that South Africa has, to make people to make people see how beautiful South Africa is, so that many people can travel in the country without going out of the country. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon to the floor at large. I am Mihlali. I would like to quickly ask, as much as South Africa is not resourced, right, but the resources that we do have are not utilized the way that they should be utilized. I feel that, and I have also seen that sometimes resources are just placed in places, and people are not told this, you can do this and this and this and this with this particular resource, right? For example, with the 9 commissions, right? Most people don't know about these things. So I want to ask, like, what is the government doing to ensure that the current resources that we do have, we fully use them so that they're not wasted in a sense, because sometimes, okay.
Comrade Derek, my name is Tulang Libaking from Ward 40. My name is Tulang Libaking from Ekurhuleni, Ward 45, and within this ward, there's a house of a late Chris Hani, and this house is being used as a museum, but it's not recognized. So I want to know, what's the plan for that house?
Speaker, can I hijack the platform since I'm being disadvantaged by this projector in front of my eyes? It's a request.
What is the request, Honorable Member?
Sorry, come again?
What is the request?
Thank you very much.
What is the request, Honorable Member? That was what.
Oh, please, can you remove this projector so you can notice and recognize my hand?
Oh, right. I
Is
shall
it noted?
work on that, Honorable Member. I shall surely work on that.
So can I proceed with my request?
Yes, you can.
Thank you very much, Speaker. If you can firstly allow me to welcome all presentations that have been delivered today. I have a request to all senior government leaders who are present here today. After being informed by the reality from where I come from in my community, in particular in Ekurhuleni in Pomola, we have high rate of child-headed families. So I would really appreciate that all senior government leaders who are present here to play a prominent role in those child-headed families by adopting those families, because all of us, we know that you are in good position to in bettermenting their lives. And also to request you that before you leave this house, at least if you can request a list of all those child-headed families that we know from our communities, so you can assist them. It can also assist
Thank
you
you,
in
Honorable
lobbying next
Member.
year.
Your time is up.
Can you please give the Honorable Minister a chance to respond?
Okay, thank you very much. Of course, we must all promote people to see more of our own country, because it's a beautiful country. There's so much to see, and we want people to see more of it. But since you come from the Northern Cape, I want to deviate a little bit. One of the things that you can see in the Northern Cape, apart from the Ograbis Falls and the Kalahari Park, National Park, government is launching a very important project that you should be very interested in next weekend or this coming weekend, and it is called the Meerkat in the Northern Cape. There are 64 dishes. This is going to be the biggest radio telescope the world has ever seen, with more capacity than any other telescope in the world today. And it's the beginning of a much bigger project. And so there are already 64 of these huge dishes in the Northern Cape near Carnarvon. And this is country achievement. And we don't know the many things that our country has achieved, the many good scientists we have in our country. And we trust that some of you, as you embark on your careers, will also become researchers and scientists. But it's up to us to encourage people to travel more. The reason that people don't travel in our country as much as they would like to is because people don't have the money to do so. So it's an affordability question. So as our economy grows, as more people get jobs, we trust that more people will travel as well. On the Chris Hani, my dear comrade, on the Chris Hani Museum, I don't know it, but can you engage with the departmental officials? They can give you an email address so that you can give us more details about it. And I myself would like to go to it, if you can invite me to go to it so that I can see it sometime when I'm in Cape Town. Thank you. And then finally on the child-headed families, you know, unfortunately that is another sad reality of South Africa. We have many, many child-headed families. We certainly can't give you the list here today at this meeting. We will be here for a long, long time. But the truth of the matter is, one thing that we should be proud of, and there's something that we should not be proud of. You spoke about the resources that are not used properly. Well, the biggest crime is when, you know, you'll make mistakes in every country. You'll have projects that are not getting optimal results. But the biggest crime is that when resources that are intended for the poor go into people's pockets. And I think that is partly what the New Dawn is about. is an intensified fight against state capture and corruption. That is why we have a Judicial Commission of Inquiry. These are things that have been put in motion by President Cyril Ramaphosa. We must support it. And we must ourselves be fighters. Every one of us must be a fighter against corruption. Every one of us. So the one achievement in our country has been our social grant system. Not working as well as it should, and we've read about the problems, but we must also appreciate the fact that we have about 17 million people in our country on some form of social grant, including a child support grant, including disability grants, including pensions, old age pensions. And this is something that it's very important for people who would otherwise have no form of subsistence or income. So we must celebrate these achievements, but we must make sure that we don't rely totally on social grants, that we create more jobs, more opportunities, and that those grants are properly administered. And the people who deal with grants intended for the poor in our country, if any of those grants go into their own pockets, that is a serious crime. Thank you.
Honorable members, I've just been informed to highlight that in our vicinity, we happen to have the Auditor General, Honorable Mr. Makwetsu, and Advocate Hlale from the South African Human Rights Commission in the Western Cape. So since the questions that are being asked are not only relevant to the Minister of Tourism, they will also be asked to participate in the discussions that we are having in this House. So if they have any wish to respond to the questions being asked, we will note with their hands being raised, honorable members. The three hands that were the first to come up here was that one right there. I'm not sure how to describe it. The lady with the gray, yes, next to you, yes, you were the first one. The second one was there at the back, yes, you. And the third one is by the screen, way back there, by the screen, yes. That's the only three we will be having for now. Honorable members, we have about 15 minutes to continue with these discussions. So if we happen to use the 30 seconds that we are allocated properly, we'll be able to have a lot of people speak by the time we finish. So, honorable members, you may proceed.
Yep. Okay, thank you for the opportunity. I have a question for Mr. Derek over there. As much as you guys are here to motivate us about tourism, but why is it that on the tourism level, foundation one, going back to high school, why do we feel that it's more important to do science and accounting rather than doing tourism in high school? Why is it that you are giving us teachers who are going to demotivate us about taking tourism rather than taking maths and science? Thank you.
We can have the next honorable member.
Uncle Derek. My question is based to you. In our group, we have a relationship with the Germans. So for them to travel to South Africa, they don't request visas, but for us it's a must. And sometimes it delays us for gigs because we perform for them in Germany. So why do they need visas for us? It's a must for us to bring them, but for them, it's not necessary.
Dagamani call from Limpopo province. When we're giving tours, we are sharing our history. Most of our history about our communities are not written on documents. Then my question is, how does the Department of Tourism see to it that the tourists are living with truthful information?
leader over here, my boss here, said I must be very brief in my replies, and I will respect his request. On the tourism and why insist on maths and science, etc. Well, it's not an insistence. I think every subject that you learn, every subject is important. There's no less important subject. However, maths and science do give you a very good grounding to go into many different fields. So it's very useful if you do get the maths, including in tourism. By the way, if you have studying tourism at school doesn't necessarily make you that employable in the tourism sector. It's often being a chef makes you more employable than having studied tourism at school. But if you have knowledge of accounting, it's going to have value for you for anything, any business that you want to go into. That's one. Two, Germans. Well, Germany wants a visa from us. That's their right. We don't demand a visa from Germany because it's not in our interest to do so. So you better lobby the Germans and not lobby me, because we don't decide for Germany. Third one, history. And the telling the true story. Yes, it is one of our big challenges. You'll go to Robben Island tomorrow, you'll have a guide, and we hope that the guides tell the true and authentic story, the accurate story of what happened in Robben Island. We do training programs with guides, because if you go to some parts of South Africa, for example, maybe you know the place, maybe you don't, it's another World Heritage Site called Vredefort Dome, and it's a big crater, but you don't actually see it. So it only takes on meaning when a guide there tells you about it, when there's some kind of discovery center. Same with Marupeng, Cradle of Humankind. Marupeng is a discovery center that tells you the story. You don't just see it because you see a fossil. You are told the story by guides, or you're told the story by discovery centers. Yes, they need to be truthful, accurate, and authentic. Thanks.
Honorable members, unfortunately, that was the last set of questions that we were taking from the House. We will be taking one last question because that honorable member has been raising his hand for some time.
I've got a question for the honorable member, Mr. Siavulela. Did you study tourism at school, or you found a loophole opening tourism, then you took it? If you had a loophole, the question I have is, what is it that you brag about?
Actually, leadership, it wasn't a loophole, but I did study internal auditing. But guess what? It was a calling. You know, we all get different types of calling as a human being. Some people, they become traditional healers. Some people, they become newborn. This was our calling to share the richness of where we come from.
Honorable. Honorable members, I would like to quickly subject you to Chapter 2, Section 28 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, in subsection, I think it's subsection B, if I'm not, it's subsection 2, which states that a child's best interest are paramount importance in the lives of the child and every matter concerning the child. I think that we can all agree, honorable members, that when a child is hungry, the child cannot participate. So it is about time that we So before we break off for lunch, let us please give a round of applause to the Honorable Minister of Tourism for his address. Thank you. A quick announcement is that as the sessions are about to break, all guests and delegates are requested to move to the step of the National Assembly for the group photo, and lunch will be served after the group photo has been taken. Thank you, honorable members.
Speaker, there's an announcement.
You are just full of sheets.
Honorable members, just for clarity, it is the NCOP steps and not the National Assembly steps. The session is hereby.
Can you allow me a platform so I can make my announcement, Speaker?
No, I'm going to tell you right now.
A question
coming.
We're very hungry.
Please note nathi ukuthi sikhona.
Yeah, yeah.
Makitor.